Good afternoon.
Hey guys.
We are back again. We hope that you had a good Easter and a good celebration with your family. We hope you're doing well. We took Sunday off, but we're back today. We're looking at Esther chapter 7. And as we get into Esther chapter 7, what's happened up until this point is that Esther and her people have been told that they're going to be killed. The Jews are going to be killed at a certain date. Basically because the anger of Haman, because Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. And so he wants to kill all of the Jews. And up until this point, Esther has been working up the courage to ask the king her request, which is going to ultimately be to save her people. But up until this point, she hasn't quite got there yet. Initially, when she stood before the king, he granted her wish, and she just asked that they throw a big banquet and that Haman and that the king come to it. And after that feast, again, the king said, no, what do you really want? And she left us last week with the idea of that she's going to throw another party. And then you had the incident after Haman left the first party. He passed Mordecai. Mordecai still didn't bow down, and then he was really angry. And he decides to build this pole that's 75 feet long that he ultimately wants to ask the king for permission to kill Mordecai. And so today, that's kind of where we're at. But before we get started, Esther is inviting them to this big banquet. She wants Haman and she wants the king to come to this big banquet. And it's going to be fancy, and there's going to be food and drinks and all of that. So we want you to think about what's the most, I don't even know how to say it. It's like the fanciest thing you've ever been a part of. Or like the thing that made you feel like most like royalty. Or like just like really like, ooh, look at me kind of thing. Do you have an answer?
My first initial thought was the couple cruises we've been on. We always have like an elegant fine dining night where you get dressed up really nice and you go. And being on a cruise itself makes you feel like royalty because they wait on you hand and foot and do everything for you. The same thing with our honeymoon. Like when we went there, you just get waited on for anything and everything that you need, which is really nice. But the elegant dining was the night where you always got super dressed up and went out for your dinner, and everyone looked nice, and so that's probably one of the fanciest things I've experienced.
Yeah, that's a good answer. For me, it would be, we went to a couple summers ago, we went to the Caleb Fan Awards, and we actually got to go to the award show and like kind of be on the red carpet, and we were all dressed up. Morgan had a pretty dress on. I had a suit on. We got to watch the award ceremony. Like it was like the whole like Grammy kind of feel for Christian music. So it was kind of cool to be a part of that. So we want you to think about what's the fanciest thing or the most royalty-like thing you've ever been a part of, and share that answer with us. If you're watching on Facebook today, share it on Facebook. We'd love to hear it. Or if you're watching in the group me, share it on there as well. But as we dive back into Esther chapter 7, they're at the second party, and she now is like going to make this request known to the king. And so Morgan's going to read quite a bit today, but it's to kind of get us to understand where we're at. So she's going to read Esther chapter 7, verses 1 through 6, I think. All right.
That's what you said, yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, verse 1. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet, and as they were drinking wine on the second day, the king asked again, Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given to you. What's your request? Even up to half the kingdom it will be granted. Then Queen Esther answered, If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life, this is my petition, and spare my people, this is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because there's no such distress would justify disturbing the king. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, Who is he? Where is he, the man who has dared to do such a thing? Esther said, An adversary and an enemy, this vile Haman. Then Haman was terrified before the king and the queen.
Read verse 7.
The king got up in a rage, left his wine, and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life.
All right. And so we finally get to the point where the king is like, and Morgan pointed it out before we started, that the king actually shows a lot of favor to Queen Esther in this. Like, we don't know his past, and it doesn't necessarily even say that he like truly loves her, but he's willing to grant her request. And so he finally kind of gets to the point where he's like, all right, enough's enough, tell me what you want. And if you notice, she does a good job of setting it up. It isn't that she just comes out and points a finger at Haman and says, this man's trying to kill me, but it's more of like setting the tone of saying like, you know, I want my people and I want my life to be spared. And so the king is like caught off guard, and he's like, wait a minute, who's trying to kill you? And so she finally says, it's this man, it's Haman. And you see the king's reaction. You actually get a sense that the king did not know what was happening. You know, he didn't know that she was a Jew, and he didn't know that when all these requests were made to have the Jews killed, that it was going to affect somebody so close to him. Haman did a pretty good job of tricking him into it. And so she lets the king know that this is going to happen. He's furious. He jumps to his feet. And Morgan even read for you. Haman's reaction is he like falls at the feet of the queen. He knows that he's toast. Like he knows that this is the end for him. That he's been busted. He's been caught. And he's begging at the feet of Esther. The king comes back in, and he's just angry at Haman. And you read the rest of the story, and the whole plot kind of twist, because Haman had this idea that he was going to come to the king today with that 75-foot pole and ask the king to kill Mordecai. And in verse 9, Morgan's going to read again, verses 9 through 10, the rest of the chapter, we're going to see what actually is going to take place on this pole.
Then Harbana, one of the eunuchs attending the king, said, a pole reaching to a height of 50 cubits stands by Haman's house. He had it set up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. The king said, impale him on it. So they impaled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai, and then the king's fury subsided.
All right, and so we've talked about all month, basically now, as we've been looking at Esther, about how this is a story where God doesn't necessarily just appear and do something, but he's consistently working in the background. And today, you really see how God takes a situation that was meant for no good and turns it into something meant, I guess, for good. And so Mordecai was supposed to get impaled on this pole by Haman, and Haman built it with the intention of killing him, yet it all flips, and Haman is the one who got being killed. It reminds me, we've been talking about Easter and talking about the death of Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus, and Satan used the cross to kill the Son of Man. He had convinced people that the cross was going to kill the Son of Man. But as you read the Son of God. If you read the gospel, instead Jesus flips it and uses the cross to defeat death. And ultimately, Jesus has power over death because of the cross and through the cross. And so it's just a reminder that God can take things that even in bad moments and use them for great things. And so I think in this story it really shows here that God has been working in the background, and that God is going to do something great even in moments of doubt and fear. And so with our last question, we really want you to think, and we asked something similar to this a couple weeks ago in the GroupMe app, but we want you to think about, in the last couple weeks, it has been moments of doubt and fear and just like, when is this going to end? But how have you seen God through it? What are ways that you've seen God work even through these times? You want me to go?
Yeah, you can.
I guess for me, my answer would be this, is that I used to dread flipping through or scrolling through social media because it was consistently like bad thing after bad thing, like someone robbed a bank or someone stole a car or somebody got busted with drugs and all those things. And what I find so cool is on Sunday mornings now is scrolling through Facebook, and everything is someone sharing a church service or someone sharing some worship music. And so I really do think that the gospel is being shared on social media now more than ever. And it's all because our church hasn't even streamed service until now. So these tough times are even drawing people and stretching people's faith even a little bit more than normal.
Yeah, that's definitely one that came to mind. That's a huge example of how in this terrible, evil, if you will, time that is killing us all, to not get out and socialize, we're at least we're seeing some good done by God through all of that. I would say for me personally, with Drew's due date approaching and being unsure of how that whole labor and delivery and birth process is going to go. I know it's going to be completely different than Jameson's, but I have recently, in the last couple weeks, been like finding a lot of, for a while it was like all I ever read was negative things about how it's just, I'm only allowed to have one support person, so there goes my photographer idea and all of that, and people can't come visit in the hospital, and people can't come visit at the house, and it's like a scary, sad, and really difficult situation. And while it still has its stresses, I've recently, in the last couple weeks, been finding a lot of hope and support and peace in knowing that like this could actually be a really good time for our family and a good time for just me and having a new baby and us and having a new baby and becoming a family of 4 before we get bombarded by a ton of people. Not that we're not going to miss our families in these moments, but it's just kind of another reminder of like through all of this negativity comes the positivity of like this getting to strengthen our immediate family and not having to worry about appeasing our extended family, I guess. And there's been a lot of peace and hope found the last couple weeks through that. So I would say that's probably one way personally that I've seen God working through a negative situation.
Good answer. So we look forward to hearing your guys' answers and how you've seen God work in your lives. Before we go, we're going to pray, and then we'll let you guys go. So let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for this day. God, we thank you so much for the love that you have for us. And God, we're thankful for the book of Esther and the constant reminder that even when we can't see you, even when we don't even feel you working, that you are there, in fact, working in the background. And I pray that we always trust you in that. God, I pray that this week that you open our eyes to the things that you're doing, that we can be reminded of the love that you have for us and the work that you're doing in the background. And God, I look forward to hearing some of these answers of what you're doing in people's lives. And God, thank you so much for your son. We thank you for Jesus and the hope that we have because of the life that he lived and how he defeated death. And thank you so much for Jesus. It's in his name we pray. Amen. Goodbye.